Welcome to Week 11. We're talking quarterbacks here for the first time ever. Jim McCormick and I matching with our T-shirts. This is quite the turn of events for this week. But just because we're wearing the same thing doesn't mean we're going to echo each other's words. I don't think we're going to be in total agreement. But before we get to all the good stuff, want to let you know promo code CURVE at rotocurve.com saves you $2 on a weekly premium membership. Of course, this includes things like position rankings, projections, cheat sheets, must-have tools like PvP rankings, points per attempt, etc. Optimized lineups for both DraftKings and FanDuel. So it's a great package. You pay $5 instead of $7. How can you argue with that? Again, promo code CURVE, save $2 on this membership. Jim, we're talking Week 11 quarterbacks, and there are a lot of different ways to go this week. I am very curious as to who you're going to lead us off with this week.
He's kind of chalky, I guess, in the sense that he's been so hot. I mean, Marcus Mariota is a guy that I'm still on. Just in terms of for one, his red zone efficiency has been amazing. So far in his career, he's got 116.3 passer rating in the red zone, 30 touchdowns and no interceptions. Completion percentage of 66%. He's only taken 2 career sacks. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous stuff. I think what we saw last year with Cam Newton making that leap in the red zone, and that's really what made the difference in terms of not just the scoring on the ground, but then all that passing scoring. We're seeing that with Mariota now in terms of just multi-touchdown weeks every week since week 5, 7, 8, 19 total touchdowns since week 5. He's still priced reasonably. He's 8,000 on FanDuel, 6,700, which is truly reasonable on DraftKings. I just think it's a way it's not really paying down. It's a mid-tier guy. But I just think, this Colts game shapes up as a shootout. The Colts secondary is still beat up. They don't have a pass rush. I think they have the 7th lowest pressure rating on opposing quarterbacks. We can't identify the weapons on Tennessee that are so valuable, but he's making it work. It's not too dissimilar from last year's Carolina group where, you're going to put together 30-plus touchdowns with, your Rashard Matthews. He can be your Ted Ginn kind of thing, I'm also paying down again with Blake Bortles. In the ultimate, he's not very good in real football, but he's pretty good in fantasy football kind of, connection here, the correlation, because I think he's like 28th in QBR, 30th in yards per dropback. But ever since Nathaniel Hackett came in, he's passing it 45-plus times. They're throwing it downfield with some success. I also think, there's something to be said about the ascension or the revival of Allen Robinson in the same regard. And more importantly, the matchup. I mean, Detroit really still is really bad at defense. They have the lowest pressure rating in the league. And that's where Bortles really struggles, is when he's under pressure. I mean, he's really prone to be a gunslinger and throw off his back foot. And I think with a clean pocket, there's only one pass rusher for the Detroit. It was Ziggy Ansah, and he's been silent this year. So, yeah, those are 2 guys that I'm paying down for in cash. One more guy that I also like in cash would be Kirk Cousins. The Packers have been really terrible themselves in the last 3 weeks. They're giving up. I think they're ranked 31st over the last 3 weeks in points per drive. They're allowing 3.06 points per drive to opponents, which means every single time their opponent gets the ball, it's a value of a field goal. They're giving up a touchdown on 35% of opposing drives over the last 3 games, which obviously means on over a third of drives you're ending up with a touchdown. They're not stopping many teams. Their pass rush is dissipated. Their secondary is depleted. I think all 3 of these guys, particularly Bortles and Cousins, you can get for sub $6,000, sub 7,500 or right around 7,500 on FanDuel, and still enjoy an 18 to 25-point game.
That's pretty ridiculous. I thought at least you read the first 2 guys off my list for cash games. I thought you were going to leave me at least one, but you really went verbatim the 3 guys I like. And I just want to reiterate that Marcus Mariota has been doing it recently with only in the last 4 games, 14 yards rushing has been his high. So, yeah, he's just getting better as a passer, and he's spreading it around. And you got to love the matchup this week for Delaney Walker, who I think flirted with tight end 1. I'm not sure if he was. I got to go back and look. But I know it was like 7 for 87 and a touchdown the last Colts ranked 31st in DVOA to tight ends, and he kind of busted out last week. He's been using Rashard Matthews. So you got to love Mariota this week and his consistency. Blake Bortles, The last 2 weeks have been 2 of his 3 best in terms of fantasy points this year. They've also been 2 of the 3 best for Allen Robinson. You're right. There's got to be something going on there. Now you get the great matchup for Julius Thomas as well, and them probably playing from behind. I definitely like it there. And Kirk Cousins, I mean, his guys that you want to have the great matchups have the good ones. Jamison Crowder out of the slot. I don't think there's anyone on the Packers, especially their banged-up secondary, who can work with him. And Packers have allowed the 8th most fantasy points to tight ends, so that Vernon Davis, Jordan Reed duo. I think this is also a situation where you look at Rob Kelly. He's got only 2 runs this year that weren't at least to the line of scrimmage. But this Packers defense, I don't know if that's credit to Kelly, the offensive line, or what it is, but I don't think this offensive line and running game is as good as either DeMarco Murray or Devontae Freeman in the Falcons. So I think they're going to have a hard time running the football, which means a lot of passing. Cousins already averages the 6th most attempts, or he has thrown the 6th most attempts. So I definitely think if he's got to crank that number up, there's going to be plenty of production to go around, especially with them possibly playing from behind. Let's go to tournaments since we're on the same page here. I would guess we have different tournament quarterbacks. Who do you like for tournaments? Are you sticking with the same guys, or you going with maybe Tom Brady or one of the top guys?
Well, yeah, I mean, tournaments, I want to get a couple shares of these guys. I wouldn't mind, splitting a couple teams between paying up for Roethlisberger. I just think it's one of these games where, even if, first of all, the Steelers don't really take their foot off the brake or the foot off the gas very often. It's kind of a slump buster kind of game for them. I know that Ben had 400 yards and a nice fantasy game last week, but they've lost 4 straight. Only 2 teams since 1990 have lost 5 games in a row and made the playoffs. So obviously you're going to want to win here. Obviously they're huge favorites. I think Minnesota's facing that same premise 4 in a row. But again, we talked about Detroit being so soft. Cleveland's even softer. They've given up a touchdown on league high, 33% of opposing drives. So again, essentially every third time you get the ball, you can score a touchdown. They give up 3 points per drive. So, yeah, everything's really soft and easy. They don't have a pass rush. Everything just lines up. I mean, I think in tournaments, I'm more willing to do the big stack. We can talk about that later, but with Ben and Antonio and pay up. I actually also like Andrew Luck in tournaments. I think there's a little bit of fatigue with him in terms of, paying up for him. But, the thing is, he had a really nice game last time out against these guys. I think he completed 70% of his passes, like 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. The thing is, Luck, his thing, he operates pretty well against the blitz. Natural pressure is a little tougher for him. And that's the thing. The Titans don't create natural pressure. They have smaller defensive ends, Arakpo and Morgan. They really have to blitz. They have like the 5th highest blitz rate in the league. So I just think Luck's in a good position to kind of excel against a familiar opponent that he's already produced against. And we know that this Tennessee secondary is not very good. I think they're 25th or something, or maybe worse, on Pro Football Focus among pass coverage teams. So those are 2 guys that I like. Another a guy that I also like, we're mentioning this. I think this Jacksonville-Detroit game kind of has some fun fantasy elements. I'll take Matt Stafford at home. I think there could be a little bit of buy luck bias in the sense that, he didn't play last week. There wasn't a box score to look at. But he's still putting the ball up. I don't think this Jacksonville team's any sort of a foe in terms of slowing him down. I know they've been tough against the run. That doesn't matter. Detroit doesn't run the ball. So those are 2 guys, Luck and Stafford. I don't think you have to pay all the way up for Brady and stuff like that. I'm not a huge fan of the Brady setup only because, I think we could see a thing where he has to get all of his points almost early. And that's one of my concerns. It's almost like a Golden State Warriors concern, right? Like a blowout concern, and then you just see it be the LeGarrette Blount game.
Yeah, I mean, Brady is someone I would reserve for tournaments only. I do worry about the LeGarrette Blount setup, but one thing I will say about Belichick is sometimes when you think he's going to zig, he zags. Right. And that's kind of what my feeling with Brady is, why I want to have at least a few shares with him. Another guy I kind of have interest in is Alex Smith this week. He always has one big week in him per year. And I just get the feeling against this Tampa team, Tyreek Hill's kind of his guy. Tampa very good against number 1 wide receivers, and I guess you could argue that Tyreek Hill is their number 1. Doesn't really line up that way. No Jeremy Maclin doesn't exactly help the cause. But I think we could see a lot of Tyreek Hill. They rank 25th in DVOA to 2nd and 3rd receivers. So Alex Smith may be able to get them involved. I just think – that this kind of sets up as a game where he may have to throw more than usual. And for Alex Smith at this cheap prices, he's what, 6,700 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's way less than that. He is 5,300, which is where I really liked him, right about at the minimum. So I think with us looking at all the quarterback weapons this week instead of the quarterbacks themselves, I mean, most of the guys we've mentioned are the lower price guys. I definitely could roll with that. And I think you could always roll with Tyrod Taylor in tournaments, just with his rushing ability. You know, Cincinnati, nothing special. So I like him there. And the last guy I want to mention is Eli Manning, who, this Bears team is brutal in terms of time of possession. So are the Giants. They're two of the worst. But you look at the way the offenses have been going lately and the fact that, Jennings is coming off one of his best games. I think – Jay Cutler is who he is. He's kind of a turnover machine. The offense is in flux without Alshon Jeffrey. If they're not going to pound Jordan Howard, which we don't know on a weekly basis, then it could get ugly. This is a game where Eli Manning could have the ball more than usual. Both him, Beckham, and Rashad Jennings, all of them could have, more time, more volume than usual because the Bears get off the field so quickly. So I do think, we could see Eli crush his value. He is only, where's his price tag on DraftKings? It was not very much. Hold on, let me double check for you. 6,300. Right. So, kind of a mid-tier guy who I don't think people are going to think about paying up for. But this Bears team, Winston.
They've given up. It's over.
Yeah, exactly. They kind of checked out. They don't have an offense, so I think Eli could have more. Do we miss anyone at the quarterback position this week?
I just can't believe Jay Cutler still isn't inspiring people. So,
never again after last week. I did have some faith in him last week, but you watched that game and he's
in full DGAF mode.
Yeah, and now the Giants number one against number one opposing receivers. They've got two very good cover corners. Right. I wouldn't even think of starting Cameron Meredith or Cutler this week.
No.
So that is all for quarterbacks this week. But before we go, want to let you know, promo code CURVE. Just want to reiterate, you save $2 on a weekly membership. What does it include? Position rankings, projections, cheat sheets, that kind of stuff. Must-have tools like DVP rankings, points per attempt, optimized lineups. You get access to ownership percentage, which is pretty big, to be honest, after the Thursday night kickoff. So make sure you save that $2. You can spend it elsewhere. You can buy 2 movies at a Redbox or something like that. So make sure you go ahead and check it out. Jim and I will be back with the running backs in the next segment.